Hello and welcome. This is Best Foot Forward Shoes, the podcast, and this is episode 21. As you can see behind me, we are back in the usual setup. Hurricane or Cyclone Alfred has blown away. We are left with a fair amount of damage, but you'll be happy to know that the studio has survived, and we are back today with a brand new guest, Mr. Aaron Diaz, all the way from Las Vegas, Nevada, over there in America. He's been very kind enough to join us. How are you going, mate? How's your night going over there?
Going well, man. Going well. I'm excited to be on with you. I watched a couple of your episodes, and so this is exciting.
Nice.
Things are going good. The weather in Vegas is beautiful, and so 70 degrees, so I can't complain.
Nice, 70 degrees. I think it's like 20. I think it's like 20 in my language. So I think
I think so.
Nice.
Yeah,
just enough to wear a jumper, but like not enough to wear like a big jacket or beanie or something. But I feel that I think that kind of weather is going to be coming our way pretty soon. We are towards the tail end of summer, so we are pretty close to having that sort of hoodie weather, which I'm super keen, which means I can kind of break out a few different sneakers as where my head goes. You know, I can wear some more like Air Max shoes, some maybe some Jordan 4s, some of those big, bulky, heavy, hot shoes, you know, kind of put away the mesh runners like you can see behind me, just send them away and get focused on a different pairs. But no, we've brought Aaron on today because you've kind of been someone who I've been following a little bit on Instagram. You've kind of been someone who has sparked a lot of perhaps interest and discussion in the kind of sneaker community. Aaron, you've been doing it a fair bit longer than I have. Like, you've been into sneakers longer than I have, and you probably have a bit more of a historical perspective on sneakers, which I really wanted to chat to you about today. But basically the first question I did kind of want to ask you was, where does this kind of come from? Like, start from the beginning. Where does this kind of, I guess, passion for sneakers and creating content actually come from for you?
All right. So we'll start from the beginning. This passion in sneakers really was instilled by my mom and my family. I've had a sneaker collection as long as I can remember, so it's kind of unique because a lot of people in this space kind of grow up and start buying the sneakers that they wanted or they've always wanted or wanted as a kid. But my mom actually would buy me all of those shoes as a kid, and it's not like we were rich by any means, but for whatever reason, my mom felt it was important to dress me and my younger brother well. And so for her, that meant we wore the newest Nikes, we wore the newest Jordans. And so I remember being like 7 or 8 with like 25 pairs of shoes. And I'm like, that's like crazy to think about a little 8-year-old with 25 pairs of shoes. But for my mom, it was important. And it became kind of like a ritual in my family that every month when the new Jordans came out, when my mom got off of work, we went together, her, me, and my little brother, and we went to our, sneaker boutique, and we bought the newest pair of Jordans. And we always made sure to ask them like when the next one was coming out so that we knew when to be back. And my mom would put it on the calendar, and it's like, all right, in March, we're going to go back and get this pair, this pair's coming out.
Dope.
And so, so ever since I was a little kid, I have pictures of me and, like Jordan 17s and Jordan 16s and 15s. And so shout out to my mom. Sneaker content creation kind of came with a lot of people during the pandemic. Like, I was very active in like Facebook sneaker groups and things like that. And actually my brother, my cousin brother, his name is Brian. We've always collected sneakers together since we were kids. And he kind of hit me up and was like, hey, have you seen this show Full Size Run? And so he sent me a clip. He sent me a clip of Full Size Run, and I watched it, and he said, hey, we could totally do something like this at a kind of like a smaller scale. And so we did. We started a show called the Goody Two Shoes Show during the pandemic when everyone was at home, and we got to meet some pretty cool people through that. And then he accepted a job actually at Solomon. He went to work in the marketing department of Solomon. So he kind of didn't have the time to do the show anymore. And so after a little bit of thinking, I was like, hey, this is something I enjoy. I really like talking about sneakers, but I enjoy the connections we've been able to make and the people we've been able to meet. And so I decided to kind of bring it back on my own. And that's where the birth of Front Page Aaron came, so that's kind of where that came. I've always kind of navigated a camera pretty well. So I figured, why not try to add something to the sneaker conversation.
Nice. And I feel like you kind of have sparked a little bit of discussion around a lot of these these kind of interactions with people on Instagram. Like people always have really good comments on your videos, and you know, you've had some people, a lot, like some pretty highly prominent people in the like sneaker community repost your stuff. And are you like encouraged by that? Are you seeing that this is kind of going somewhere that you really enjoy where it's going?
Yeah, actually, like that's kind of a battle that I've had to fight, right? Like not seeking external validation and
Yeah.
just posting to post and just trying to add something to the conversation. And it's just kind of cool that it has resonated with
Mm-hmm.
some people. And like you said, like I think just yesterday, In Style Shoes reposted one of my things, and I'm like, oh shoot, like this is something that I like. This is a forum or a blog that I followed for my whole life essentially, and it is encouraging, but it and I also recognize where we're at in sneakers too. You know, like I recognize that what I talk about is very niche. You know, I don't
Mm.
show the flashy new shoes or stuff like that. So I don't expect to see this exponential growth, you know, like 100,000 followers, but I'm just happy with, like you said, like just having some people that I respect and recognize follow me and care enough to listen to my opinion and
Mm.
hopefully just spark conversation. That's what's most important to me is the connections.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good spot to come from. I think that if you're kind of in it, like I've kind of said on this before, if you are into sneaker and you content create at the same time, and you're trying to get to that, you know, 100,000 subscribers or followers, and trying to get a lot of external validation, you're kind of in it for the wrong reason in a lot of ways, and it's doesn't feel like it's very future proof in terms of
Yeah.
like you were talking about with new releases. You don't really show a lot of like, oh, I picked up the latest release. And we spoke about this before, where if you were going to be one of those people, it's going to cost you a lot of money. Like it's going to cost you what, like if you on any given weekend, say for example this weekend when you've got like the sneakers release of the Union ones, the brick by brick, like that's going to be upwards of $600, like, you know, something like that. My maths might be a little bit odd. I can't quite
No,
compute
you're
with
right.
American currency, but for me that would be upwards in the 700 Australian dollars. So like and that's every weekend. It feels like there's a release coming out. So that sort of longevity is something you kind of got to think about. And I think that when you're showing pairs that you like I saw one you were doing with the what was it, the Air Max one that you recently did, because obviously
Oh yeah, yeah.
it's Air Max month. You know, you don't need to have bought the latest release to be able to show that one. So no, I really enjoy that you've created a bit of a conversation. I think that there's definitely a market for that, where people do want to chat about it. I mean, that's kind of why I started doing a podcast, so I didn't have to rely on constantly buying the latest shoes and such like that, because it doesn't quite get you to that longevity. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to, speaking of like shoes, obviously you have a huge wall behind you. You've got a large collection. What are some of the more favorite or most treasured pairs in your collection? Doesn't have to be the most expensive, but like what are the ones that mean the most to you?
Whew. All right. Yeah, I have I think I have a pair of Cherrywood 16s, and they're crumbling. But that shoe is special for a couple of reasons. One, it's my favorite shoe of all time, Cherrywood Jordan 16.
Mm-hmm.
And the second reason is my now wife was my girlfriend at the time, and I saw a post on Facebook, like in a Facebook sneaker group, and they were selling it for $200. And I, at the time, I was like, dang, I want to buy this pair of shoes, but I don't have the $200.
Yeah.
But my girlfriend knew how much that shoe meant to me, and she goes, I'll pay for half. And
Oh.
so she put in $100, I put in $100, and she went with me to pick up the 16s. And so that shoe has been special
Mm-hmm.
to me. But really, for me, like I've, I think I've, I don't know how to say this in like the correct way, but the shoes that mean the most to me are just like the simple pickups that I have. Like I've kind of gotten to the point where I don't pick up shoes unless I really want to have them.
Mm.
So a lot of my older Air Forces mean a lot to me because my favorite era of shoes was that like 2004 to like 2010. And so, excuse me, in my opinion, that was like the golden era of Air Forces and Nike SB Dunks and regular Dunks and Nike basketball. And so those are kind of the shoes that mean the most to me, just any patent leather Forces from that time period. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so that's kind of what means the most to me.
Nice. I think that it means different things to different people. Like you might
Yeah.
think that this shoe was like an incredible get, like I didn't think I was ever going to get this pair, and you just magically hit on it. Or sometimes it has more sentimental value, like you spoke about your wife. I got these ones, which I like to talk about. These ones, the up there 2002 Rs,
Yeah.
and they were not a gift, but they were bought at the same time when I got married. So it's kind of
Oh, yeah.
one of those, like I'll always kind of have that pair, and especially I've got them like on display because they do mean a lot. They're not exactly the most expensive pair.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not cheap, but yeah, it's one of those ones that it has a more of a sentimental value. But you're kind of speaking there about your favorite era, and that's a lot, going a lot further back than since I've been collecting, and probably a lot of people, like the longevity of collecting sneakers is rather impressive. So my next question is kind of, what is the major differences that you've seen from that favorite era that you're talking about to where we are today?
Man, that was a great question, and I've been thinking about that one quite a bit. Um, I do think that it's cool how many people are into sneakers now. I know that sometimes people who have been in it for a long time can come off as like gatekeepers
Mm,
and upset that people are interested in it. Now there is definitely a larger community around it, which is cool, right? And now there's a lot of ways to connect with people, like you mentioned before, just people that are kind of prominent and being able to just talk to them on Instagram or something like that. Whereas before, you kind of just watched collection videos on YouTube, and that was kind of how you idolize people. Whereas like
mm,
now, the internet has brought this closeness to the community. Like you're in Australia, I'm in Vegas, and we're here talking about sneakers.
yeah,
That's one of the coolest things that has progressed in sneakers, right? And now we can put names to faces. You're not just your Nike Talk ID or
yeah,
your forum name or whatever, right? What's changed is I think there's different motivations for it, like everything else, right? Like when something becomes popular, then entrance points for people become a lot different. Like some people come and go really quickly because they like one or two pairs and they get really hyped about that, and then they quickly lose interest. And then other people saw the financial aspect of it, right? Like I can come in and I can kind of buy a lot of shoes and resell them and
mm,
make a lot of money. And now you see there's like reseller tutorials and courses, like how to
yeah,
be a reseller.
yeah,
So that's one of the biggest things that I kind of gripe about is like I love the fact that in the last year or so you've been able to walk into a store and buy a sneaker, a week or two after release, because
mm,
that was such a cool experience for me, is being able to walk into stores with my mom and ask for my size and try them on and take them home. and
mm-hmm,
and so that's something that's changed, over like I think 2020 to about 2023. There was everything was almost inaccessible, right? Like you had to fight or you had to get really lucky in order to get a pair.
mm-hmm,
And I think in a way it created this habit of like overconsumption, right? Because you just wanted to get something. So whether you were actually really passionate about the shoe or really
mm-hmm,
like the shoe, it just felt good to win, right? Almost like
yeah,
playing the
yeah,
lottery or gambling. You're like, I'm gonna put in for everything, because if I hit on sneakers once, then it feels good to,
mm-hmm,
hit on a pair of sneakers for retail.
yeah, yeah,
Those are kind of the main differences. And I think too, like because of that, because a lot of companies and not just Nike have felt the need to overproduce, we kind of have lost the stories in the simplest of pairs. Like I remember having like glow in the dark dunks, or like dunks with stories and names to them, and they were just general releases, but people knew them and they talked about them. Whereas like now, general releases kind of get swept under the rug, right?
yeah,
There's not a lot of stories behind them or a lot of marketing behind them. So you just kind of, if you know, or if you're interested in going to a store and picking up a GR, you kind of do that. But everything has kind of um, become more about the hype and more
mm,
about like what everyone wants. And so that's something that's different now. But overall, I think sneakers is headed to a good place. Like I don't think that um like anything, it evolves and it changes, and we just kind of have to
mm-hmm.
roll with the punches.
I think that's a lot in the, like, I suppose, sneakerhead space, where they do have a reliance on collaborations to push
Yeah.
those models. where I think that just regular kind of people who just want to go and walk into a store and don't think about it twice, they kind of just, oh yeah, they've got the black and white Sambas, they got the general kind of blue dunks. They're super happy about that. They don't really think about the inaccessibility of some collaborations that might be hidden behind a raffle or a first come first served. They don't really think about that sort of thing. So there's definitely a bubble that we live in terms of sometimes we can over contextualize things in sort of that sneakerhead space and not really think about the overall. Like Nike is obviously the biggest multi-billion-dollar company, and collaborations and those sort of things are a big part of their business, but it really is kind of, I feel, market research for their general wider community. They kind of use us a little bit as a testing ground, perhaps, to see like what are people feeling and what are they not, those sort of things. So I think that you said before, what was it? You said the kind of older generation. I was talking about this with my friend Sam, that the kind of newer generation of sneakerheads see certain shoes in a different way, like New Balance. That might be, in 10, 15 years, that might be the shoe that people are talking about retroing instead of a huge amount of Jordan 1s. And there are 16, 17-year-olds who, for the past 5 years, who have gotten into sneakers, they see New Balance as like a cool sneaker. And they see those sort of things, and it doesn't quite apply to the kind of old head sneaker thing. Like I'm not gonna shade anyone who just wants to wear Jordans, but there's a whole new generation of people that have come in. You know what I'm talking about? Like, and there's a new story kind of being written. What do you think about that new kind of push of runners and New Balance coming in to kind of invade the space, so to speak?
It's refreshing, man. And I am totally gonna throw shade at those people, man, because no, I'm just kidding. But in actuality, like you can't, like Jordans are not the most comfortable shoe in the world, right? Like I was talking to my buddy Chad, and he has a crazy collection. Like I'm talking like, when you think about collections with every shoe you could imagine, he has it. PlayStation Air Forces, like just that type of collection. And even him, he was like, man, I've been just wearing runners the last couple of years because you get to a point where it's just like, man, you value your pinky toe more than you value, more than you want to wear a pair of Jordan 4s or Jordan 3s. And you appreciate the historical aspect of those shoes, but for everyday functionality, they're just not good shoes to always wear, right? You put those shoes on to kind of flex, to kind of put on a fit, and then you go out to dinner, you go out to the movies, but everyday life, you're not wearing those. So it's a good thing, man. I truly appreciate this era of variety that we kind of have gone into, because it's true. And I can say even for me, when I was heavy collecting, and like even in high school, a lot of it was Jordan centered or Nike centered, right? And so I would wear Dunks, I would wear Air Forces, I would wear Air Maxes, I would wear Jordans, but I never really ventured off into other sneakers. And then I started wearing Vans a little bit, and then I got a job at Adidas, so I was wearing Adidas a little bit, and it's just like other companies make really good shoes, and so that's a good point. I do think that it's kind of cool because I'm a teacher by day, and so these kids don't care really about retro Jordans, right? For them, like they're wearing Asics, they're wearing Sambas, they're wearing Doc Martens, like they're so into the variety of it all that and like you said, in 10 or 15 years, those are the shoes they're gonna draw back to, right? Like same way I draw back to Air Forces and Dunks, they're gonna draw back to Asics and New Balances and so it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to see the what I love, the Saucony shoes. Like the kind of rise. I know Saucony's been around for a long, long time. I'm not saying they're new in any way, but like moving into a different space where they're using J-Tips as a collaborative partner, and a couple of other rappers now, they're kind of coming onto that rotation. There's a few more people who are wanting to get into that because they think that those are kind of the cool shoes now, and I suppose moving away from those retro Jordans. I think they'll always have a place in those retro Jordans because they are steeped in so much history. It kind of reminds me of like the Sambas, like people kind of came into them, they were like, oh, these are new, when in reality they've been around since the 1950s as a performance sneaker. And it's like they have that that's kind of the same way that Asics has kind of come onto the scene a bit more, but they are steeped in history. Like they have a huge backlog of clientele, loyal customers who want to wear their shoes because of the comfort, and now they're just becoming a little bit more popular in, say, the fashion scene, and so that kind of drives a little bit more of their pop culture popularity, so to speak. But no, it's definitely exciting, and I love still wearing Jordans. I'm not saying I'm never going to wear Jordans, but yeah, I walk a lot for my job, so I kind of have to wear runners a lot. So I'm always out and about, have to be walking a lot. So wearing New Balance has just kind of become natural for me. That's kind of the first pair that I will, grab to. I literally just did a New Balance kind of full rotation video, and I was like, I've actually got like way more New Balance than anything else. So, but it's kind of wild. Would you say that Jordans? I can see a lot of Nike behind you on your thing there. Is that definitely still your kind of number one brand that you rock?
Nike, yes. Jordan, no.
Yeah.
Jordan, I used to buy a lot of Jordans. Recently, I've bought a lot of the Jordan 1 lows. I like those a little bit more. But I have a lot of Nike runners. So, like a lot of Vomero 5s. The P6000 is one of my favorite shoes.
Yeah.
The Air Max DNs. I really enjoy those. Yeah, pretty much all Nike runners. Like, I think that whole shelf right there is all like Vomeros.
Yeah.
And then the one behind me is all Air Forces. And yeah, pretty much all Air Forces.
Yeah.
So Jordan, not so much anymore. I'll go for a pair every once in a while, but
yeah, nice. The DN was a good, like, refreshing kind of silhouette last year. I really liked that one. Some people weren't so hot. I think the opposite for me is true for the DN8 coming up this year.
Yeah.
Unless I get it in hand and try it and kind of feel an amazing difference in like the cushioning, but from what I've heard, it's not like incredible. So probably just gonna pass on that. I might get a pair to like review or something. But what are your thoughts on that pair?
So fun fact, I don't know when the podcast is coming out, but I just got my first like email for a seated pair, and that's going to be one. And so
Nice.
I'll have it in hand by the time that this podcast comes out, and I'll be able to say I'm excited for. I mean, I think it's exciting anytime Nike tries something new, right? Because sometimes it gets stale just retroing sneakers, or I haven't heard much about them. I know Andy who you interviewed, 80 Sneaks, had a pair, and
the pink pair.
I asked him, the pink pair. I asked him about it. He was a fan, but I haven't yet held them in hand or anything. So I'm curious to see how they'll be.
I think it's the colorway. That colorway was like a little bit the pink one. Like I like a loud pair, but not that loud. Like that was
Have
a bit.
Have you seen the pictures of the silver pair?
Yeah, silver pair. Yeah, I did see that one. That was
like
nice.
Black. That one's a lot easier to wear. Yeah, I couldn't see myself wearing the pink pair, but like the silver pair, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, the Nike has basically released like every possible colorway that you can think of now over on there. Like Foot Locker and JD Sports and stuff over in Australia are kind of the ones that carry those Air Max lines. You don't really get them in like your generic kind of stores, but Foot Locker is definitely the one where they're going to be promoting them a lot, and I think that's one of the places where I'm going to try and get them. The price is a little bit too big for me at where I am. Like, I just feel as though the materials, I know it's inflation and stuff, but like the price, I mean, you look at what the AE1 was going for, and those kind of, the conversation around, was it Damian Lillard who was wanting to keep his price of shoes down? And then they're pushing the Nike DN8, which is obviously a hugely mass-produced shoe, for $100 more than what the AE1. This might just be me in Australia, but I'm just feeling like that's a little bit of a rip-off,
Oh, absolutely. And I think they're going to shoot themselves in the foot. And I think the problem is that from a business standpoint, it doesn't matter to Nike because they force their retail partners to buy them anyways, right?
Yeah.
And so what it really does is it hurts these stores like JD Sports and Foot Locker and stuff like that, because Nike will sell them at their wholesale price and they'll get rid of them, right? Because they'll make it mandatory for their partners to buy, a certain amount of pair of those. And then it's ultimately going to hurt the JD Sports because the price point is way too high. Like, Nike needs to get back to releasing shoes in that 140 range. Like that, I think that's probably 140, 150 at the very top of what you should sell Air Max for, because technically it's a performance shoe, right? And so if you want to compete with brands like On Cloud and Hoka and stuff like that, you need to offer shoes that are in that same price point, because honestly, I think that's part of the reason why they're losing a lot of the demographic to On Cloud or Hoka, is because I can go buy a pair of Hokas or On Clouds or even Brooks for 150, 140 and have that comfort, that performance. And Nike's asking me to pay 180 just because their name is Nike. And so, no, that I don't, even with inflation, I don't think that the inflation justifies the cost of the shoes. I think it's just greed. At the end of the day, they're going to sell their pairs to their retail partners and they can afford to discount them on their website. But it really does hurt their retail partners who have to then discount them heavily to sell them because then they're not making that expected profit that they would normally.
Yeah, the on cloud, and plus a lot of people said last year that on sale is the new retail. Like it's like for those kind of general release pairs, I don't think I've bought a general release shoe that wasn't on sale in the last year and a half. I've mainly just spent money on, say, like new releases and collaborations and such, but or paid resale for a pair. But man, I've not paid that much for a just general release Foot Locker shoe for a long time, because there's so many shoes releasing that it kind of feels, unless it's like incredibly special, like there's sometimes there's a lightning in a bottle type thing. Say for example with New Balance, they had the 991 V2 with that like icy blue colorway, and that was kind of a little bit of an outlier. But there are some shoes like that, but I just can't afford that much, especially when you're wanting to make content. Like we spoke about this a little bit before, but that fine line between buying a shoe that you really like because you want to wear it and buying it because you just want to make content on it. How do you kind of, I guess, navigate that area?
So I had Matt Hatfield, he's the CEO founder of Nice Kicks, on our show several years back, and I've stayed in contact with him. But he said something on an episode on our show that has stuck with me since, and I've kind of adopted it. And he's like, because he at one point also had like a very large collection, and he said to us, I've learned to appreciate a shoe without having it. And after that, I've just kind of been like, you know what, you're right. Like I had this overconsumption where I felt like I needed to have the shoe to show everyone I appreciated it or showed it off. And in reality, like sometimes I was just getting the shoe to say I had it. Like, oh, the Jordan, did you get the Union ones? It's kind of like you said, like the or like the brick by bricks, right? Like you kind of sometimes just get it, kind of peer pressure yourself into it. Like it's the hot shoe, it's the shoe everyone's talking about. Like if I'm a sneakerhead or I'm a content creator, I kind of have to have that shoe. But I no longer buy shoes for the sake of content. I'm proud of myself for making this jump, because for a long time I wasn't, and I was getting, a ton of boxes every month, and my wife was like, "Oh my gosh, another pair." And so now it's just, if I feel very strongly about the shoe, like if it's a shoe that I really care about, I will buy it and I will make content around it. Or I'm really just buying steals, right? Like if I can get a Samba low and I like the colorway for $50, I almost appreciate and enjoy that more than getting one of these shoes that everyone feels like they have to have. Like I'm like, I almost am more proud of getting a shoe for a steal now than I am like buying one of the newest releases.
That's true. I'm kind of looking at a couple pairs, to be honest. There's like the End Saucony collaboration from last year, the Nessie pair. I'm seeing that go on sale, and I'm like, damn, that looks like that's a good price now. And there was a pair that my biggest regret from last year not getting was the Asics 2160 with Earl's collection, who's a Kiwi. Louis Brown. He's a from New Zealand, not from Australia. Everyone gets that confused. But his pair, and I've seen a pair go on sale. Well, not sale, but the price has dropped a little bit on the resale, and I'm like, I think that might be the one. Just kind of, it's not exactly a steal. It's still more expensive than like a regular 2160, but damn, for like the story behind it and the price of it, it's like some of those pairs are a little bit more enticing sometimes than, say, for example, the latest Fear of God shoe. Just as an example, I don't know why that one comes to mind, but the price on those Fear of God shoes is just insane, and I'm seeing them sitting all the time. I think that transition from Nike to Adidas is probably going to be used in the future as a case study of what not to do when you're moving from one brand to another. I think a good use case might be Pharrell. or Clot, something like that. But man, I don't know. I don't want to get too much into bashing Jerry Lorenzo, but I just don't love a lot of what Fear of God has done. They look good, but man, the price, we're just talking about it. The price is too much.
Jerry Lorenzo, like, I think that partnership was deemed to fail from the beginning. He said it himself that they kind of teased and announced the partnership before they had established their working relationship, and which I can understand from an Adidas standpoint. Like, you want to let people know, like, hey, don't give up on us yet. Like, we just signed Jerry Lorenzo. Like, we have this amazing partnership underway, but there wasn't any product in the pipeline. There wasn't, and to Jerry Lorenzo's own words, they didn't establish that. They didn't know what the partnership was actually going to look like just yet. You know, it was like hey, I'm agreeing to sign with you. I think we can do cool stuff. And then Adidas announced it. Jerry Lorenzo, obviously none of us know him personally, but from his personality on the internet, um, he comes off as not the easiest person to work with. Like, he's very, very, I don't want to say, like, I guess if you do great things, you should be confident and you should be, you should stand on what you do, which he does. But it very much often comes off the wrong way, like rubs people the wrong way, the way he responds to criticism or responds to certain things. And so it's very much, I'm better than you in a way esque, you know, like, and so that hurts that collaboration a lot. I think if people are put off by just his personality too. But yeah, you're right. And then the price point, like, the problem is, like, and we'll just say, like, a lot of people that came from like this Kanye West tree of shoe designers, right? Like, at one point, all of these guys have worked for Kanye West, like Salehi Benbury and Don C and Virgil. All these guys kind of came from this Kanye, and they saw what he did, and I mean, it's right. It's okay to aspire to what you've seen done, but I think it's hard to sustain something the way that Kanye did for so long, and um and so I think they're finding out, right? Virgil was the closest in success, like Off-White.
Yeah.
But even then, like, towards the end of Off-White and Virgil, a lot of the product was kind of starting to miss the mark. People weren't running towards it. But yeah, that's a good point. I think Pharrell is just like a graceful person, right? He just comes off as someone that, like, you want to have in your friend group. That's just kind of that quiet wisdom and easy to get along with. And obviously we don't know him personally either, but he also, I think him and Adidas didn't have the greatest run either, right? He had a good amount of run for a little bit, and maybe these new jellyfishes will have spark some excitement, but I don't know. It's hard, man.
Yeah, I think that's a good analogy you use, like the coaching tree type analogy from the NFL. Like the coaching tree, you got Kanye, and then you got all these other collaborators that have come off him. And I think, I didn't want to go too much into like what the whole Fear of God thing, but I think it's a good kind of study as to where we are right now. And a lot of say for example, I've seen on the Complex Sneakers podcast, they've literally got like store owners in, and the thing that they're saying, like the last 2 episodes, they've got like consignment store owners in, and they chatted about the product that they're moving. It's not really the hyped Jordans, it's like ASICS shoes, and they're usually running at the price point of like just over retail or under retail. Those kind of shoes are the thing that's moving people, and I've never seen a pair of Fear of God Adidas in the wild, except for myself. I've got one pair. Maybe if they go on sale, I'll get another pair of the second version, but they just don't really, I don't see anyone in the NBA wearing them. Don't really see anyone like that. That's kind of a good metric. Like, you see people wearing the Hardens, the latest Harden shoes, and obviously Anthony Edwards is everywhere with his basketball shoe. But that kind of, I don't know, that lifestyle / basketball. Like, do you see anyone even wearing like Devin Booker's shoe? Like, that was his whole motto. Like, that was his whole motto.
Yeah, no, you make a great point. I think we're becoming, I think, especially that new generation, we don't have the icons in the way, or they don't have the icons in the way that we did, right? Where it was like, when Kanye was wearing the infrared sixes, everyone was wearing the infrared sixes, right? Or like at least in the States, you had people wearing like the leather pants and the Nike slide knits. And when he came with Ultraboost, right? Like him wearing
Yeah.
Ultraboost, and they just exploded.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
almost seems like collaborators in a sense, which is maybe why Asics and these type of shoes are doing so well, have kind of distanced themselves from the people, and that's made it so you don't connect with their product as much, which is why I think J Tips is doing really good and Joe Freshgoods is doing really good, because you always see them out and about, or like their products really talk to people. But yeah, other collaborators, you have to make that connection with people. Otherwise, they're not going to care enough. You know, they're going to be just fine with Asics that, um, and and to be fair too, like that's just the way sneakers and trends are now. Like it's just we like what we like, and then once we like something else, we'll move on to it. We're not there's not a lot of there's not a lot of this like underlying loyalty for the sake of loyalty. It's like I'm loyal to the product I like, and if you're not making it, then all right, so well, right? Like I'm gonna go
Yeah.
buy Asics, or like, you know, I'm excited to see what Brooks does with their new staple collaboration. Like I'm excited to see if that's a new entryway
Yeah.
for Brooks into the sneaker space.
Yeah, if there's anyone who can kind of push that needle, it would be Jeff Staple and Brooks. You know, they're kind of going into that retro runner kind of vibe, of course, and I think that's something that brands like New Balance, of course, that's their kind of ethos. Asics, that's their ethos. So they're in that comfy runner space. But you spoke a little bit about the Ultraboost, and I did see, obviously Kanye West was kind of the first spokesperson, so to speak, of that Ultraboost model. I did see them retro, as in a retro, like the 10-year model. And I was like, I just thought to myself, is that a little bit too soon for a retro runner to be retroed? You know, I don't know. It just felt a little bit odd to me.
And I think, well, I think it's just the space has progressed and evolved too much from it. Like you said, it hasn't distanced itself enough to where there's a need for it, because
Yeah.
we've gotten more comfortable shoes. Like that was the Ultra Boost whole thing, right? It's a
Yeah.
lifestyle shoe that's really comfortable.
Yeah.
But for the last 3 to 4 years, we've been getting really comfortable lifestyle
Yeah.
shoes. New Balance has made a run, Asics has made a run,
Yeah.
Saucony's
Yeah.
made a run, and they've been able to kind of, even better than Ultra Boost did, have this lifestyle comfort shoe where you can be in New Balances like you all day and still be stylish, still be lifestyle, but also have that functionality of like, man, my feet aren't going to be killing me when I get home today. And so
Yeah.
Ultra Boost has kind of like been surpassed by these more comfortable technologies, right? And even just better runners like the Vomero, or like Nike has retroed some of their stuff from like '05, you know, where it's been 20 years, like the Vomeros and the Air Pegasus, and these shoes just do comfort a little bit better than Ultra Boost. And I think in that time where Ultra Boost was like this new hot thing, and they were like, we weren't used to getting comfortable shoes, you know, it was just like, we're still wearing Jordans or like Nike Dunks. But then since then, we've had this kind of explosion of these comfortable shoes, and who's not going to pick a 990 V4 over at Ultra Boost right now, right? Like you're just,
Yeah.
it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, that's true. And I recently went to, not recently, a couple months ago, I went to the Philippines for the first time with my wife, and a lot of people say that the Philippines is 5 years behind the rest of the world, not only in technology, well, actually not technology, that's not true, but style is something that they're not behind, but they definitely don't follow the immediate trend. And I definitely saw a lot of Ultra Boost still, like on people's feet. And I saw a lot of them in stores, like consignment stores, for going for a like fair amount. So they still move the needle in some other places, and we gotta think there are still worlds outside of our kind of Western, you know, Australia, US, the UK obviously have certain styles, but I mean the Ultra Boost is still incredibly popular, and they still have lots of different models piggybacking off that original model. So no, I think you've got a great take, a great perspective on that sort of the comfy runner, and where we were when you perhaps started and where we are now. I wanted to chat a little bit about some of the upcoming releases that we are going to be seeing coming up in the next couple of weeks, and even maybe not next month. That's a little bit too far ahead because sometimes things get cancelled, as we know. But the Brick by Brick Nigel Sylvester shoe has kind of been everywhere, and it's one of those shoes that, for me, I've wrestled with the conundrum of, do I like the shoe enough to buy it, or am I just getting it because I want to make content about it? And I think I'm leaning more towards this way of, I'm not going to get it because, or not going to try and get it because of, it's just not my vibe. And I think if I learnt anything from this conversation with you is just to be kind of a bit more choosy and, like, get what you want to get. But did you have any kind of thoughts about A, Nigel Sylvester, and B, this release of the Brick by Brick 4s?
And this is like new developing, but like I've really appreciate what Nigel does. I like seeing the bike rides in New York City and like getting the consumer involved. I like the shoe. I think it's a good shoe, but I have a couple hot takes. Think I think it's a good shoe, and I think it'll sell well, and I think there's a lot of hype around it. But I've heard stories like he had a pop up just recently, and I heard that they were just letting people in that already had the shoe, and they were walking out with 4 or 5 pairs, and there's people sitting in line that were like waiting to get the shoe. So that kind of, for me, kills the whole momentum of it, because I'm like, if you're gonna do one thing and be about the consumer, right, and involve the community in the releases, then you have to follow through and do it all the way through, right? Like, people can't see people leaving with 4 or 5 pairs of shoes that already have the pair and still have that, it's deflating as a consumer.
Yeah.
So for me, that makes it so that I'm like, yeah, you know what? Like, I don't know where I truly know. I don't know where your ethos truly lies. Like, are you truly about the community and the people, or is it just a marketing ploy to create hype for your shoe? So that's damaging. And I do think, and this is another hot take, but it's been thrown out on the internet a little bit, there is a lot of similarity between what Nigel is doing and what Unheard of brand and like Philip at Adidas have done. So Adidas, they released several years ago, almost 2 years ago now, a year and a half ago, Grandma's Couch.
Yeah.
Which was a collaboration between Unheard of brand and Adidas. And it was a shoe. The whole marketing campaign was designed around Phil's relationship with his grandma. And the shoe was, in essence, reminiscent of, or paying homage to the couch in his grandma's house. And Oliver, I don't know how it is in Australia, but kind of a big trend for grandmas was to have the plastic over the couch and these old flower patterns on the couches. And so it was an homage to that. So then Nigel Sylvester drops his shoe, Grandma's Driveway.
Yeah, sounds a bit familiar.
And then the whole campaign is essentially revolved around his relationship with his grandma and riding his bike in her driveway, right? And so then last November, Phil and Unheard of brand dropped Building Bridges, where the whole part of the shoe was the shoe design had different bricks on it because of the discoloring of the bricks on the bridge. And then here comes Nigel Sylvester and drops bricks by brick.
Yeah.
And so I know that, two things can exist and it doesn't have to be a straight copy, but it is a little coincidental that these kind of things are happening. So I don't know if they're just paying extra close attention to what Adidas is doing and dropping product that way. But I don't know. Back to the shoe. I think it's a cool shoe. It's one that I'm not super attached to. If I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. And that's kind of where I'll be at with it.
Fair enough. I think that this might be for Nike a bit of a litmus test as to where Nigel sits in their staple of collaborators and where, perhaps in relation to their biggest one, which is Travis Scott, where he's going to fit within the next 3 or 4 year cycle. As we know with Nike, it takes a long time for projects to develop, and so this will probably influence a lot of decisions as to moving forward where they go. And I think he also had a rumored Jordan 1 low, like a mainly black. I think I saw leaked pictures of that earlier in the year, which I like that one a lot better than this Jordan 4. But I think that they're going to use this as a bit of a perhaps platform to be able to push him a little bit further. He's obviously done collaborations with Nike before, but he might be the next kind of Nike ambassador in that sort of way. Like, he's of that perfect age. He's got that performance background, which is Nike's trying to bring back. They're trying to bring back that performance into their brand. And I think it's just sometimes the Travis Scott stuff might have run its course a little bit. As great as it was, it's kind of we move quickly as a society. We want the next thing, and this might be an example of them pushing him a little bit further. What do you think?
Yeah, I actually agree. I want to give a shout out to my guy Mike from the Sneaker History podcast. He and I were talking about this earlier, and that's a theory we're throwing out there, is that it could very well be that Nike is trying to see where they're at in terms of collaborators. They're not like, they're moving the needle like this union, but there's not a lot of innovation in them moving the needle, right? Like, there's not a lot of new to what's going on. And so I think Nike is really trying to see, like, what's the face of the brand, what's the face of collaborations moving forward. Travis is this very big public figure that has this younger generation kind of in line with him and in cahoots with him. And so, but they need something else, right? Like, everything, it runs its course, and eventually, right, the Jordan 1 low with the backward swoosh isn't going to be as appealing as it once was. So Nigel could be it. He's cool. He's young. He's a BMX rider. It's kind of this like rebellious sport, right? Where it's like you see these kids wheelies down the sidewalk and jumping on things and falling down and getting hurt. And so he may be that attractive piece to get the younger generation in line.
Yeah, even when I lined up for getting an in-store release of the Sharkadon, the Spiridon Travis Scott thing, that was the Field Jack Zoom is the correct name for anyone wanting to look it up. There was a lot of younger people, and I interviewed a couple of them and put it onto a vlog, and they were like, it's just a Travis shoe. Like, I don't care what it is. I just want the Travis shoe. They're like, I've got an opportunity to get a piece of Travis Scott's, I guess, lineage for retail. And they're just jumping on it. It doesn't matter that it's kind of 3 or 4 years perhaps past the peak of what was an amazing high. They just want a piece of that. And so if people connect with Nigel Sylvester that much, then they might just want a piece of whatever he makes with Nike. And I think that's a absolute gold mine that Nike might have tapped into. But I think another gold mine that they might have tapped into is basically just switching one color of an SB4, because they've now created a royal blue colorway of the pine green color, which was released in 2022. Was it 2023? Anyway, they've basically just swapped one color, and they've also got a red colorway as well. So, are you feeling this one, or this is a pass as well?
I like the Nike SB4s. I think which one of those was a friends and family? Like, I think the red one. Friends and family, which I like more. I like that white and red. I like them. They're another shoe that's like, if I get them, I get them. If not, I don't. I've heard that the SB4s are a lot more comfortable than the normal 4s. I see you have them right there.
For me, I'm happy with the green. Like, green's one of my favorite colors, and I don't feel the need to try and get a blue pair. Like, that's really the only difference, is it's just blue, like, a little bit. Like, I guess some people in sneakers, they want that completion. They're like completists. They want to have every single colorway of a certain silhouette. Brands often play into that, I'm going to say. Brands know that. They know that people want every color. And so they're going to keep releasing some colors to just, push the needle a little bit more. So, anyway, I'm on the camp of I'm not going to have a look at it. I just think that February was such a big month, especially for me, that it's like, and I kind of fell into that trap a little bit, perhaps with the union. I probably spent a lot more, because getting them to Australia is much more expensive than getting them to somewhere in America. The shipping is a lot. Like, the shipping is probably half the price of the shoe, to be honest. And I probably spent a bit too much on that one. And there's some upcoming pairs like the Salehi 991 V2 that I'm super, super gassed about. Like, I'm super keen on that one. So I probably spent a little bit too much on those ones. And I think I'm going to have to hold myself back from getting any of these brick by brick or the SB4s just to set yourself up for success throughout the rest of the year. You
Yeah,
know, it's only March. You know, we've got a
yeah,
lot of time to go. And again, there is also the opportunity to perhaps get them on resale if you are really that inclined. Like you're so hard up about them. Try and get them immediately after the release. They'll probably be at their not their lowest, but pretty close to where they're going to settle on that resale market. So, any other upcoming releases that you're super excited about seeing in the next couple of weeks or even a month?
yeah. The sneaker politics, is it the Gel Cayano
Yeah,
A6? Those are a good looking pair.
yeah.
Um, the undefeated Spiridons are
Mm-hmm.
the ones that I'm really excited about. I
Yeah.
lined
Two
up for
more,
the
two
yeah,
more
there's two
colorways.
more.
Yeah.
I lined up for one pair, and that was like exciting for me. It felt
Mm,
good to get back in a line and get them, but that's kind of more my wave now is the runners, and so the Spiridons,
mm,
I really enjoyed having, and so I'm gonna try to get the other two pairs, but
mm.
there's not much that like the Salehis are cool. Um, but the price points, I know they're going to be a little pricey. That's kind of the same thing that kept me from getting the Joe Fresh Goods, the A12,
Mm.
was the price. And those are kind of sitting at retail right now. So I
So,
might
yeah.
double back and get those. But yeah, man, I'm not too keen on spending a crazy ton anymore. Like if I usually just wait. I have a little list that I keep going, and if I can get them for under under retail, that's kind of my excitement for me.
Well, I would just quickly just say
Ooh,
these ones. You gotta. I put a little lace swap in there. I grabbed some
yeah.
more teal laces. These don't come with it for anyone trying to freak out. Like, why didn't I get those ones? These are like secondhand laces that I popped in. But man, these are going to be like on feet a lot throughout my
Those
winter
look nice, man.
rotation. They're chunky. They're comfortable. Like I don't think that you can get much better in terms of like New Balance and yeah, I won't get too much into it because we're almost out of time. I won't try and push too much about Joe Freshgoods and New Balance, but I 100% agree that you should double back and maybe get a pair of these. If you could even find a pair slightly used, even maybe for second
Yeah.
hand, like 100% go for it. It's definitely well worth it. And, it's obviously too early to push for whatever top sneakers are going to be in the year, but I can guarantee that this is going to be in the top 10 for
Yeah.
most people, just because of the hype. I basically and just the story as well. We spoke before about sentimental value. A good friend on Instagram was one who sent me these because I lucked out on 3 different raffles. Like I lost 3 raffles, and then he sent them to me. So I'm
Wow.
like, it's another testament to
That's
kind of that
cool.
sneaker community.
Yep.
And I think that that's one of the reasons why I like this shoe, not just because it's awesome, but because a friend sent them to me. That sort of
That's awesome.
sentimental value. What was your experience lining up for those Spiridons? For that
It
you
was cool,
undefeated.
man. Yeah, it was cool, man. Like I admittedly, like I said in my video, thought like no one would care for them. They're Spiridon, like other Spiridons have sat.
They have, yeah.
And I think Spiridons are more popular in the UK, and I don't know if Australia is the same way, but I know that in Europe they're a lot more popular than in America. So, but it was cool. I was talking to the people in front of me, behind me, like
Mm,
it was cool to see people get back in line after they
mm,
got their pair. They had a DJ in there. They had some
mm,
food for people, and so it just felt like that community aspect again, right? Like I
yeah.
followed a couple people on Instagram. We've talked via DM since then, and so for me, it's
Yeah.
like that's that's what I enjoy more. Like that pair will always be sentimental to me because I stood in line. I met a couple people at their release. It's a lot more
Hmm.
adds a lot more to the story of it than just ordering them online.
I'd say the Spiridon probably has even less of a following here in Australia. Really,
Yeah.
only like boutiques actually carry them. No
Oh
Foot
wow.
Locker, no for anyone in Australia, no Hype. Hype DC is a big chain in Australia.
Yeah.
None of them have it. JD don't have it. It's just boutiques. So it's really that niche sneaker market, and I haven't seen anyone post about them. Maybe it's just the click or the bubble that I'm in, but
Yeah.
I've not seen them move at all. But yeah, those undefeated ones look super cool, and I think that they did something really nice with it, with having a little bit of different materials. What's the feeling of those? I don't know if you have any general release Spiridons, but what's the feeling between those ones and like a general release pair?
They definitely I do have a lot of Spiridons. Actually, it's
Mm,
one of the shoes I kind of doubled back and went and got on like the secondhand market when they were sitting for very low. They're definitely, like collaborations tend to do up the material, up the comfort. There's a little
mm,
more padding in them than the traditional Spiridon, but
mm-hmm.
they stayed pretty true while also, improving the materials, which is nice.
Nice. Well, I think we've gleaned as much incredible knowledge from you as we can. So I'm gonna sign off there. I'm going to thank Aaron so much for coming onto this podcast. I really appreciate. If you want to check out his Instagram, I will put the link down below, and you can go and check out him. Give him a follow as well. Like, watch his reels and all that sort of stuff. He's put a lot of effort into it, and we were speaking about sometimes doing the content creation is a little bit more effortless. Sorry, it's not as much. It's not as effortless as it seems that we make it look. So thank you so much. Did you have any kind of final words before we head off for the day?
No, I just appreciate, this is kind of cool. I've never really interacted with a sneakerhead from across the world. So that's been cool to see and experience this. And I think just my sentiment about sneakers in general is that community first. And I love that aspect of sneakers. I love having conversations about it. And so let's just keep the conversation going. I think that's the one way we push the culture forward, the one way we keep the community alive, and the one way we stay true to kind of the essence of it is just keeping the conversations and these interactions alive and well. And we can kind of preserve this thing that a lot of us have come to appreciate. So
very well said, mate. Thank you so much again for coming on, and thank you so much to everyone for watching. If you want to watch more podcasts, I've got a ton more on the channel. If you want to subscribe to get some more, you can hit subscribe down below. Hit the like button as well. It does help the channel grow and push forward and reach more people. So really appreciate, again, everyone watching. Appreciate Aaron. Thank you so much to everybody. Have a good day.